Hey, my name's Brian Mason. I'm 26, and I run a small contracting crew out on the outskirts of Portland, Oregon. It's mostly residential stuff, building additions, fixing foundations, that kind of thing. I start my days early, usually grabbing a quick egg sandwich from the gas station on the way to the site, then spend hours yelling over the noise of jackhammers and saws. By evening, I head back to my little one-bedroom apartment, crack open a cold beer, and crash on the couch with my lazy cat Whiskers, who spends most of his time sprawled out like he owns the place. No one's waiting up for me, no dinners to come home to. I haven't been married, haven't even dated seriously in a couple years. My buddies are mostly the guys from work. We catch football games on Sundays or hit up a barbecue now and then. But life's pretty straightforward, predictable. And honestly, I was fine with that until one random evening turned everything sideways in the most unexpected way. It was a Tuesday, just after sunset. I'd pulled a long shift on a new build downtown, overseeing the framing for a custom home that was already behind schedule thanks to some supply delays. My back ached from hauling lumber and my boots were caked in mud. I decided to walk the few blocks home instead of driving, figuring the fresh air might clear my head. The streets were quiet, the kind of quiet you get in Portland's older neighborhoods. Leafy trees lining the sidewalks, porch lights flickering on as dusk settled in. I had my earbuds in, listening to some old rock playlist to drown out the city hum, my mind wandering to the next day's punch list. That's when it happened. Blue and red lights flashed behind me, cutting through the twilight like a knife. I pulled out one earbud, turning just as a police cruiser pulled up to the curb. The door swung open and out stepped an officer, tall, athletic build, blonde hair tied back in a tight ponytail, her uniform crisp under the street lamp. She looked to be in her late 30s or early 40s, but there was something about her face. Sharp features softened by these striking gray-blue eyes that made her seem younger, more approachable than the situation called for. She approached with that measured cop walk, hand resting lightly on her belt. "Stop right there. I need to check you out," she said, her voice firm but not aggressive, those eyes narrowing as she sized me up in the dim light. I froze, hands instinctively going up a little. "Whoa, officer, what's going on?" My heart picked up speed. Not because I had anything to hide, but getting pulled over on foot wasn't exactly how I pictured ending my day. She didn't waste time. "You've been described as matching a suspect in some recent thefts around here. Mind if I pat you down?" I nodded, keeping my cool. "Go ahead. I've got nothing on me but work stuff." She checked my pockets efficiently, then asked for my ID. I handed over my wallet, explaining as she scanned it, "I'm just heading home from the job site down the block. Been there all day." She radioed in my details, her eyes flicking between me and the cruiser. My backpack was next. She unzipped it, rummaging through the hard hat, half-eaten sandwich, and a few tools. "You work construction?" she asked, glancing at the dirt on my jeans. "Yeah, own a small crew, framing a house today. Long hours, but it pays the bills." The radio crackled back. "Clear. Camera feed shows the suspect's taller, wearing a black hoodie. Wait, no, this guy's not a match. Over." She exhaled, her posture relaxing just a fraction as she handed back my ID. "Sorry about that. We've had a string of package thefts, Amazon boxes, yard stuff. Description was close. Tall guy, dark clothes, walking alone. Didn't mean to hassle you." I shrugged it off, trying to lighten the mood. "No worries. So am I innocent? No ticket or anything?" For the first time, a small smile tugged at her lips, making her look way less intimidating, almost approachable, like someone you'd chat with at a coffee shop. "You're off the hook. But hey, just to be thorough, you're not married, are you?" The question hit me like a curveball. I blinked, caught off guard, wondering if this was some kind of follow-up interrogation. No. Single as they come." "Why?" Her eyes held mine for a beat longer than necessary, something personal flickering there amid the professional demeanor. She holstered her radio, stepping back toward the car. "No reason, but I owe you for the mix-up. Give me your number. I'll buy you a coffee sometime. Call it an apology from Portland PD." I stood there, processing. Was this real? A cop hitting on me after nearly arresting me? But her smile was genuine, and hell, why not? I recited my number, adding with a grin, "So you can track me easier next time?" She chuckled softly, jotting it down. Something like that. Stay out of trouble, Brian. Then she got back in the cruiser, lights flipping off as she drove away, leaving me staring at the taillights fading into the night. I walked the rest of the way home in a daze, replaying the whole thing. Whiskers greeted me with a lazy meow as I dropped my bag by the door, but my mind was elsewhere. Who was she? Why the marriage question? It felt random, yet oddly deliberate. I grabbed a beer from the fridge, sinking into the couch, scrolling through my phone absent-mindedly. No texts yet, but I couldn't shake the image of her eyes under that streetlight. Serious one moment, warm the next. For the first time in ages, my predictable life felt like it had a spark of something new. Trouble? Maybe. But damn if it didn't feel exciting. The next morning dragged. I checked my phone more times than I'd admit. Nothing but work emails and a spam alert. By afternoon, I'd convinced myself it was just a polite gesture, nothing more. Then, around 4 p.m., a message popped up from an unknown number. Saturday, 10 a.m., Harbor Cafe. I'll cover the coffee. Rosa Martinez. My pulse jumped. Rosa. It suited her. Strong, no nonsense. I typed back quickly. Sounds good. I'll be there. As I set the phone down, a grin spread across my face. Whatever this was, it had started with a mistaken identity, and now? I was curious enough to see where it led. The weekend couldn't come fast enough. After Rosa's text, I found myself glancing at my phone more than usual during the next day's work, checking for any follow-up, half expecting her to cancel. But nothing came. And by Friday night, I was buzzing with a mix of nerves and excitement I hadn't felt in years. I tossed and turned that night, my mind replaying our street encounter. Her serious gaze softening into that unexpected smile, the way she'd asked about my marital status like it was the most casual thing. Whiskers curled up at the foot of the bed, oblivious while I stared at the ceiling, wondering what I was getting myself into. A coffee date with a cop who'd nearly arrested me? It sounded like the start of a bad joke, but something about her pulled at me. Saturday morning, I woke up earlier than planned, the sun filtering through my blinds in that soft Portland haze. I stood in front of the mirror longer than usual, scraping off a day's worth of stubble with my razor, then digging through my closet for a clean button-down shirt. Nothing fancy, just a plain gray one that didn't scream construction guy. I even ran a comb through my hair a few times, chuckling at myself. When was the last time I'd put this much effort into meeting someone? I skipped breakfast, my stomach too knotted to handle food, and headed out on foot. The walk to Harbor Cafe took me through the quieter parts of the neighborhood, past brick row houses and coffee roasters pumping out that fresh brewed aroma. It was a crisp fall morning, leaves crunching under my boots, and I used the time to steady my thoughts. What if this was just a polite apology? What if she showed up in uniform and kept it all business? Harbor Cafe was tucked along the Willamette River, a cozy spot with weathered wooden tables, exposed brick walls, and big windows overlooking the water. Boats bobbed lazily in the current, and the air inside smelled of fresh pastries and strong espresso. I arrived 10 minutes early, ordered a cappuccino to settle my nerves, and claimed a table by the window. The foam on top was perfectly swirled, but I barely tasted it as I watched the door, my foot tapping under the table. Indie folk music played softly in the background, something mellow with acoustic guitars, and I pretended to scroll through my phone, but really, I was replaying every possible conversation in my head. At 9:57, the bell above the door jingled, and there she was. Rosa looked nothing like the officer from that night. Her blonde hair fell in loose waves over her shoulders, catching the light, and she wore a simple blue sundress with a light gray cardigan draped over it. No badge, no holster, just a casual purse slung over one arm. She scanned the room, spotted me, and her face lit up with a genuine smile that made my chest tighten. "You're early," she said as she approached, her voice lighter, almost playful. "I half expected to have to send out a search party." I stood up, pulling out the chair for her with a grin. "Figured I'd beat the rush. Plus, didn't want to give you a reason to pull me over again?" She laughed, a real easy sound that echoed softly in the quiet cafe, and sat down, ordering a latte from the barista who swung by. As she settled in, I took her in. Without the uniform, she seemed younger, more relaxed, her features softened by the morning light streaming through the glass. Those gray-blue eyes were just as striking, but Now they held warmth instead of suspicion. We started off light, easing into the conversation like we'd done this before. So, about the other night, she began, stirring her drink. I really am sorry. We've been chasing this porch pirate for weeks. Stealing packages, yard decorations, you name it. The description was spot on for you. Tall, dark clothes, walking alone after dark. But hey, at least you didn't run. I chuckled, leaning back in my chair. Run from a cop like you? I'd have tripped over my own feet. Besides, it made for a good story to tell the guys at work. They think I'm some kind of criminal mastermind now. Her eyes sparkled with amusement. Well, if you ever need an alibi, I've got your back. Perks of the job. We talked shop for a bit. I described a chaotic day on the site where a newbie carpenter had nailed his own boot to a beam, and she countered with tales from her shifts. Chasing a drunk driver who ended up parked sideways on a bridge, or the elderly lady who called 911 because her cat was stuck on the roof. Turns out the cat just likes the view, she said, rolling her eyes but smiling. As the coffee cooled, things shifted to more personal ground. I asked about the thefts again, curious. It's frustrating, she admitted, her tone dropping a notch. The guy's slick, avoids cameras, hits at odd hours. We've got patrols beefed up, but it's like chasing a ghost. Some nights I get home and just replay it all. I nodded, sensing the weight she carried. Sounds a lot like my job. Deadlines looming, one wrong move, and the whole project's delayed. But at least I don't have to worry about bad guys. She tilted her head, studying me. You seem like you handle pressure well. What got you into construction? I shrugged, tracing the rim of my cup. Grew up helping my dad fix up our old house. Summers washing cars for extra cash, then building my first chicken coop at 12. Felt good making something solid, you know? Now I run my own crew, small gigs, but it's mine. She listened intently, her fingers tapping lightly on the table. I get that. I grew up near the coast, always exploring beaches, dreaming of being an archaeologist, digging up lost treasures. Ended up in law enforcement instead. Wanted that sense of protecting people, making a difference, but some days, it's exhausting. You come home and there's no one to ask if you've eaten or how your day was. Her words hung there, vulnerable in a way that surprised me. I met her gaze. Yeah, sometimes all you need is that one real question to make the day bearable. The cafe noise faded around us, the clink of cups, the hum of conversations, and for a moment it felt like we were the only two people in the room. Then she broke the silence with a soft laugh. Listen to me, turning coffee into therapy. But seriously, are you okay with this? Dating an older woman who's also a cop? I didn't hesitate. Older, barely noticeable. And the cop part? Adds some excitement. I'm not scared off. If anything, it's intriguing. She smiled, a real one that reached her eyes, but there was a hint of something guarded there too. We lingered over refills, the conversation flowing effortlessly until the sun climbed higher. As we stepped outside, the river breeze ruffling her hair, she turned to me. Next time, my treat again, if you promise not to cause any more trouble. I grinned. Deal. But only if you tell me more about that archaeologist dream. She nodded, her hand brushing mine briefly as we parted ways. Walking home, the knot in my stomach was gone, replaced by a quiet thrill. For the first time in a long time, I felt like something good was just beginning. The week after our coffee date flew by in a blur of work and anticipation. I'd catch myself smiling at random moments on the job site, while directing the crew on a roof repair or hauling supplies, thinking about Rose's laugh, the way her eyes crinkled when she teased me. We started texting, nothing heavy at first. Quick check-ins like rough day on patrol, or her sending a photo of a ridiculous graffiti tag she'd spotted, captioning it, "Your next construction project?" I'd fire back with a shot of a botched drywall job, joking, "Need backup for this mess?" It felt easy, natural, like we'd skipped the awkward getting-to-know-you phase. But underneath it all, I wondered if I was reading too much into things. She was older, a cop with a demanding job. What if this was just her way of making amends? Then, midweek, her message popped up. Dinner Friday, pizza place downtown? My treat, still owe you for the hassle. My heart skipped. I typed back immediately, absolutely. Can't turn down free pizza. Friday evening, I cleaned up after work, swapping my dusty jeans for chinos and a clean hoodie, and drove downtown. The spot was a hole-in-the-wall joint called Gino's, with red checkered tablecloths, dim lighting, and the smell of garlic and fresh dough wafting from the kitchen. I got there first, grabbing a booth in the back, my knee bouncing under the table. Rosa arrived right on time, looking effortlessly casual in a black t-shirt, fitted jeans and sneakers, her hair down, a silver necklace catching the light. No makeup beyond a touch of lip gloss, but she didn't need it. There was a quiet confidence in her stride that turned heads without trying. "Hope you're hungry," she said, sliding into the seat across from me with a grin. I ordered the works, pepperoni, mushrooms, extra cheese. We dove into conversation like old friends, starting with music. She was all about classic rock, Springsteen, Fleetwood Mac, while I confessed my guilty pleasure for lo-fi beats to unwind after long days. "Makes sense for a guy who builds things," she said, tilting her head. Calm vibes for all that chaos. We debated movies next, her loving gritty thrillers like The Departed, me pushing for comedies like The Hangover, and even got into a playful argument over which NFL team had the worst defense this season. The Jets? Come on, they're a disaster, I teased. She laughed, pointing her pizza slice at me. Says the guy rooting for the Seahawks. At least we have history. As the evening wore on, I noticed her relaxing more, her shoulders dropping, her smiles coming easier. But every so often a shadow crossed her eyes, like she was holding something back. The place emptied out around us, the waiter dropping the check with a knowing wink. Outside, a light rain had started, misting the streets and turning the pavement glossy under the streetlights. "Walk with me?" she suggested, pulling up her hood. I nodded, sharing my umbrella as we strolled side by side, our shoulders brushing occasionally. The city felt quieter in the drizzle, cars hissing by on wet roads. That's when she opened up. "You know, this job, it's not just about the chases or the paperwork. Some days, it weighs on you." Her voice was softer, almost hesitant. I stayed quiet, letting her continue. "I was married once, 10 years ago. He was a firefighter, brave, funny, the kind of guy who'd run into danger without a second thought. But one night, there was a warehouse blaze downtown. He didn't make it out." She paused, staring at the rain-slicked sidewalk. I thought I'd never get over it. For years, I just existed. Work, home, repeat. No one to come back to, no one to share the bad days with. I figured that was it for me. Love wasn't in the cards anymore. My chest tightened hearing her pain, raw and unguarded. I reached out gently, taking her hand, warm despite the chill in the air. "I'm sorry, Rosa. That sounds unimaginable." She squeezed back, not pulling away. "It was. Still is some days. But talking to you? It feels different. Like maybe I'm not as broken as I thought." We stopped at a corner under a glowing street lamp, rain pattering around us. She turned to face me, her eyes searching mine. "You don't mind that I'm complicated? Older with all this baggage?" I shook my head, holding her gaze. "Complicated doesn't scare me. What scares me is you not giving me a chance to show you I'm here for it." For a moment, neither of us moved, the world narrowing to just us and the rain. Then she smiled faintly, though it didn't quite reach her eyes, and let go of my hand. "You're sweeter than you let on, Brian." We parted ways there. She to her car, me walking home through the downpour, my mind racing. Her story lingered like the damp air, heavy but somehow clarifying. She wasn't just the tough cop. She was someone who'd lost a piece of herself and was still fighting to reclaim it. That night, sleep evaded me. I paced the apartment, Whiskers watching from his perch with mild annoyance. Rosa's words echoed, her isolation, the empty evenings. I wanted to do something, anything, to show her she wasn't alone. The next morning, I swung by a bakery on my way to work, picking up a box of fresh cookies. Simple, chocolate chip, nothing flashy. A coworker had mentioned her precinct in passing once, so I pieced together her address from public records online. Before my shift started, I drove over, leaving the box on her doorstep with a note scribbled on a scrap of paper. "For the nights you forget dinner, Brian." I didn't linger, just got back in my truck and headed to the site, hoping it would bring even a fraction of the smile I'd seen at the cafe. A few months slipped by, and what started as coffee apologies turned into something real. Rosa and I were officially dating. Quiet dinners at out-of-the-way spots, weekend hikes in the Columbia River Gorge, even lazy Sundays binge-watching old cop shows where she'd point out all the inaccuracies with that infectious laugh of hers. It felt good, steady, like we'd found a rhythm. But I could sense her holding back sometimes, especially when talk turned to the future or her job. People at the station, they notice things, she'd say offhandedly, her eyes drifting away. At 40, she worried about the age gap, about how it looked. A seasoned officer with a younger contractor. What if they think I'm just rebounding? I'd reassure her, pulling her close. Let them think what they want. This is us. Then came the day it all bubbled up. We'd met for a quick lunch in a park near her precinct. Nothing flashy, just sandwiches on a bench. Her hand in mine as we watched joggers pass. I didn't think twice about it until later that evening when she called, her voice tight. One of the guys saw us today. Asked if you were my new guy. It's starting. Whispers, side glances. I can handle it for me, but for you? I don't want you dragged into this. She paused and I could hear the strain. Maybe we should cool it. I don't want to hurt you, Brian. Her words hit like a punch. I drove over to her place that night, uninvited but unwilling to let it end over a phone call. She answered the door in sweats, her hair messy, eyes red-rimmed, like she'd been pacing. Rosa, no, I said, stepping inside and pulling her into a hug. I'm not going anywhere because of some gossip. You think I care what your coworkers say? I care about you. She pulled back, searching my face. But it's not fair to you. I'm older. I've got history. What if this blows up? I cupped her cheek gently. Then we face it. Together. I'm in this because I see you, the real you, not the badge or the past. To prove it, I invited her to the job site the next day. It was a sunny afternoon, the crew wrapping up a deck build for a suburban family. The guys were covered in sawdust, cracking jokes as they packed tools. When Rosa showed up in jeans and a flannel shirt, I introduced her without hesitation. This is Rosa, my girlfriend. She's the one who keeps me out of trouble, literally. The team ribbed me good-naturedly. Boss finally found someone tougher than him. But they welcomed her with handshakes and stories, no judgment. As we walked the site, I showed her the progress. Beams we'd reinforced, the fresh wood smelling of pine. See? This is what I do, build things that last. She smiled, linking her arm with mine. You're good at it. That evening, I surprised her with something more personal. She'd mentioned once offhand how her balcony had been neglected, railing loose, paint peeling, ever since her husband died. Used to sit out there with a book, watching the sunset, she'd said wistfully. So, after work, I grabbed my tools and headed over while she was on shift. It took a couple hours, tightening bolts, sanding rough spots, even adding a fresh coat of weatherproof stain. I finished by placing a small potted flower on the table, a hardy geranium, red and vibrant, with a note tucked under. For the evenings you want to sit in peace? I slipped out before she got home, not wanting fanfare. She called me an hour later, her voice thick with emotion. Brian, I came home, saw the balcony. It's perfect. How did you... I could hear her sniffling. Just wanted you to have your spot back. You deserve it. There was a pause, then, come over, please. I drove straight there, and when she opened the door, she pulled me in, her arms wrapping around me tightly. Tears streaked her cheeks as she led me out to the balcony. You did this for me, after everything I said? I nodded, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Because I see how hard you fight every day. You make me want to fight for us, too. She looked up, her eyes vulnerable. You remind me what it feels like to be loved again. Rain started falling then, a sudden Portland downpour drumming on the roof. We moved inside but stayed by the window, watching the drops streak the glass. Rosa took my hand, her fingers intertwining with mine. I'm scared, Brian. If I let you in all the way, what if I lose you too? Like I lost him? Her voice cracked, the weight of her past crashing down. I pulled her closer, my heart aching for her. I'm not promising I'm perfect. Life's unpredictable, I know that. But I promise I'll be here as long as you want me. Through the storms, the whispers, all of it. She searched my eyes, then leaned in, her lips meeting mine softly at first, tentative, like testing the waters. The kiss deepened under the sound of the rain, her hands on my back, mine in her hair, gentle, full of unspoken reassurance. When we pulled apart, she whispered, "Okay, let's try." After that night, Rosa opened up more. She laughed freer, shared stories from her shifts without the guarded edge. We cooked together, her making killer tacos, me handling the grill for backyard burgers. One weekend, she even took me to a shooting range, strapping on ear protection and showing me the basics. I was terrible, missed the target half the time, but she doubled over laughing, her joy infectious. "Stick to hammers, Mason," she'd tease. Yet even in those moments, I sensed a lingering distance, like she was afraid to fully let go, as if happiness was too fragile to trust completely. But I didn't push. I just showed up day after day, hoping time would bridge the gap. A few months after that rainy night, things between Rosa and me deepened in ways I hadn't anticipated. We were officially together, spending evenings curled up on her couch with takeout and movies, or driving out to the countryside for picnics, where she'd rest her head on my shoulder, her hand in mine. The age difference rarely came up between us. It was the outside world that made it an issue. Rosa confided more about her worries, the stares from colleagues, the subtle comments during roll call. At 40, with my history, people talk, she'd say, her fingers tracing patterns on my arm. I'd pull her closer. Let them. We're not hiding. But I could see the toll it took. She'd come home from shifts quieter, her smiles a bit forced. It all came to a head one weekend. We'd grabbed coffee in a small park near her precinct, holding hands as we walked the paths lined with blooming cherry trees. I didn't think much of it until Monday when she texted me during lunch. "We need to talk, tonight." Her place felt tense when I arrived. Curtains drawn, a half-eaten salad on the counter. She sat me down, her eyes avoiding mine at first. "One of the officers saw us in the park. Asked if you were my boy toy or something. The rumors are starting, whispers in the locker room, jokes behind my back. I can handle it, but you? You're younger, building your business. I don't want this dragging you down." Her voice wavered, and she looked at me pleadingly. "Maybe we should step back. Cool off. I care about you too much to let this hurt you." I felt a pang in my chest, but I shook my head firmly. "No, Rosa. I'm not walking away because of what others think. This, us, it's real. And if we let gossip win, we're letting fear win." She bit her lip, tears welling up. "But what if it's too much? What if I'm too much?" I took her hands in mine. "You're exactly what I want. Age, job, past, none of it changes that. We'll face it head on." She leaned into me then, her head on my chest, and we sat like that for a while, the silence broken only by her soft breaths steadying. To show her I meant it, I planned something for the following week. I invited her to the job site, a mid-sized remodel we were doing on a family home in the suburbs. The crew was wrapping up for the day when she pulled up in her civilian car, looking a bit uncertain in jeans and a light jacket. I waved her over, introducing her without hesitation. "Guys, this is Rosa, my girlfriend. She's the badass cop who keeps the streets safe." The team greeted her warmly, handshakes, a few jokes about me finally settling down. No awkward stares, just easy banter. As I showed her around the half-finished kitchen, pointing out the new cabinets we'd installed, she relaxed, even laughing when one of the guys shared a story about my epic fail with a faulty drill last month. "See?" I whispered later. "They don't care, and neither do I." But I wanted to do more than words. Rosa had mentioned once in passing how her balcony used to be her sanctuary, a spot to read with a cup of tea watching the city lights, but it had fallen into disrepair after her husband's death. Loose railing, chipped paint, overgrown planters. "Haven't sat out there in years," she'd said sadly. So, on a day off, I loaded my truck with supplies and headed over while she was on patrol. It wasn't a big job. I reinforced the railing with new brackets, sanded the wood smooth, applied a fresh coat of sealant to weatherproof it. I even cleared out the old dirt from the planters, adding fresh soil and a simple red geranium that caught my eye at the nursery, vibrant, resilient. Before leaving, I tucked a note under the pot. "For the evenings you want to sit in peace." She found it that night and called me immediately, her voice breaking. Brian, the balcony? It's beautiful. You remembered. I drove over right away, finding her standing out there, fingers tracing the fresh paint, tears on her cheeks. How did you know I needed this? She whispered, turning to me. I wrapped my arms around her. Because I see you, Rosa. All of you. She pulled me closer, her hug fierce. You make me remember what it feels like to be truly loved. Not just remembered, but seen. We stood like that under the stars, the city humming below. And in that moment, I knew we'd crossed a threshold. No more holding back. We decided to go public after that, facing the whispers head on. Rosa took a few days off and we drove out to the Oregon coast, a rugged stretch of beach she'd visited years ago with her husband. The waves crashed against the rocks as we walked the shore, wind whipping our hair. She stopped at the water's edge, pulling off her old wedding ring, the one she'd worn as a quiet reminder. I don't forget him, she said, voice steady but emotional. He was part of me. But I'm ready to live again. With you. She tossed it into the surf, watching it disappear, then turned to me with a freed smile. Thank you for giving me that. Back in Portland, we started small changes that felt big. We cleared space in her closet for my things, turned her spare room into a shared office where I'd sketch blueprints and she'd review case files. Evenings, we'd sit on that restored balcony, coffee in hand, talking about everything, the tough shifts, the frustrating builds, dreams of a cabin getaway someday. The light out there glowed warmly each night, casting a soft halo over us. Whiskers even made the move, claiming her couch like it was always his. As I watched her one evening, laughing at some silly story from my crew, I realized I hadn't saved her. We saved each other. And this home, our home, finally felt alive again, lights on, full of promise.